Mr. Levy, what's the current situation in Israel, and can you please elaborate this thing?
The current situation is that Israel is getting ready to step up its fight against Hamas, the evil terrorist organization that committed the massacres that we saw on October 7th, with one goal: to destroy Hamas. Israel has decided that this round is different from previous rounds of fighting. It doesn't want to deter Hamas or degrade Hamas. The aim this time is to destroy Hamas, so that it can never again perpetrate the same crimes against humanity and atrocities that we saw on the 7th of October, when its death squads invaded Israel and went around beheading, burning, butchering everyone they saw, killing over 1,300 people, injuring 4,000 people, and taking 200 Israelis hostage into the Gaza Strip.
So, Israel's operation against Hamas after this attack has given rise and elicited a number of responses. How do you broadly view those responses, and do the voices outside in any way determine Israel's action against Hamas?
First of all, Israel is very grateful for all the international solidarity that we've been receiving, including from the good people of India, who have identified and expressed solidarity with what Israel is going through. And the world understands that Hamas is ISIS. Hamas is worse than ISIS. The atrocities, the stories that are coming to light now of how Hamas invaded and tied children together and set them aflame, burned whole families alive, are shocking the conscience of the world. And global leaders have been very clear that Israel not only has a right to defend itself, Israel has a duty to defend itself. And in order to defend itself, it has to destroy Hamas completely. And that is exactly what Israel is trying to do in the Gaza Strip. It's important to remember our war is not a war against the Palestinians, God forbid. It's not a war against Gaza. It's a war against Hamas. It's not a war we wanted. It's not a war that Israel started. It's not a war Israel expected, but it's a war that Israel has no choice but to win. And we're very grateful for all our friends around the world, from the United States to India, who understand that Israel must win this war against the evil ISIS-style organization that is Hamas, and we must win it decisively for the sake of Israel, the region, and the wider world.
Mr. Levy, it is impossible to ignore or deny the geopolitical situation the entire crisis has given rise to. What do you make of threat from Hezbollah, chances of Iran joining the war, and Lebanon border?
You're absolutely right to recall the situation in northern Israel, where Hezbollah, Iran's proxy, Hamas's twin sister, has been stepping up its attacks against Israel. We've been hearing very bellicose rhetoric from Iran as well, which has been clear that its ultimate goal is the genocide of the Jewish people and the destruction of the state of Israel. And our message to Hezbollah, our message to Iran, is do not mess with us. Israel doesn't want to fight Hezbollah. We don't want to fight on two fronts at the same time. But if Hezbollah forces us into a full-scale war on two fronts, we are ready to fight that war, and we will win that war, and the consequences will be severe. And in that context, we thank the United States as well for its solidarity, not only its moral support, but its tangible support, making sure that Israel's armament stocks are full, sending 2 aircraft carrier groups into the Eastern Mediterranean in order to send a very clear message of deterrence to anyone thinking of messing with Israel. As President Biden said, in just one word, don't.
Oh, so children have become not just a casualty in this crisis, but some says also a part of narrative war underway on social media. What is your take on the sufferings of children and casualties of civilians in the Gaza Strip since Israel's counterattack?
First of all, it's important to remember that Israel targets Hamas. Israel targets Hamas terrorists. Israel targets Hamas infrastructure. That is what we are going after. And Israel doesn't target civilians. On the contrary, Israel has been spending the last few days urging civilians to get out of harm's way, to temporarily evacuate areas where the fighting is going to be especially intense, because we don't want people to get hurt. Now, unfortunately, Hamas has embedded itself deep inside Palestinian population areas, underneath people's homes, in schools, in order to use Palestinian civilians as human shields. That is a war crime. It is unacceptable. And Israel is very clear. any civilian casualties inside the Gaza Strip caused as a result of this war that Hamas started, that Hamas has dragged Israel into, that Hamas is waging from inside civilian areas, all those civilian casualties are the sole responsibility and fault of the evil Hamas regime in the Gaza Strip.
So, several reports making rounds in the global media claim that the Mr. Netanyahu led government deliberately overlooked intelligence on the day of attack by Hamas. What's your response to that, sir?
It's clear that Israel was caught by surprise on the 7th of October. No one saw this attack coming. If we had seen this attack coming, we would have stopped it. And the entire country is shocked. The entire country is shocked, in pain, grieving. And there will be a time to learn lessons. There will be a time the state, the government, and the entire people are determined to do one thing, and that is to secure victory against the ISIS-like terror organization called Hamas, because we simply have no choice. There simply is no existence for the state of Israel or the Jewish people in a world in which ISIS-like terrorists are able to perpetrate crimes against humanity like they did on the 7th of October and get away with it. Enough is enough. They won't get away with it. We will destroy Hamas.
So, some media reports says that Iran is behind this attack. Was this attack to sabotage the peace deal between Israel and Saudi Arabia?
The links between Hamas, Hezbollah, and Iran are clear. They're proud of it. They speak openly about it. Iran is Hamas's state sponsor. By the way, this is one of the ways in which Hamas is worse than ISIS. ISIS was fighting by itself without international support, and Hamas enjoys the extensive financial and military support of the regime inside Iran, which wants to destroy Israel and the Jewish people. And it's clear, by the way, that Iran has an interest in sabotaging the efforts towards peace and normalization that we're seeing in the Middle East. And this is a point I want to make to your viewers, particularly in India, that this was not only an attack against Israel and Israel's civilians, this was an attack on the regional vision of peace and normalization that India is trying to advance in the Middle East. You know, I remember just a few months ago, the exciting announcements at the G20 summit, the plans to connect India through Saudi Arabia to Israel, to Europe, and a transportation corridor in order to promote trade and development and bring countries closer together to support our prosperity and development. And that is a vision that Iran and Hezbollah and Hamas are trying to attack with their vicious assaults against the Israeli people, because they don't want to see prosperity. They want to sow havoc and ruin across the Middle East. And that's what makes them not only enemies of Israel, but enemies of the whole Middle East and the broader region, including, we would argue, India and the Indian people.
So, do you think geopolitics will change in West Asia due to this war?
Israel is very hopeful that the world understands now the magnitude of the threat that we face from Iran and its terror proxies, that Hamas has proven itself worse than ISIS with these terrible atrocities, that its presence can be permitted and tolerated no longer, and that the world realizes that this was a crime against humanity. The massacre that Hamas perpetrated on the 7th of October affected, murdered, injured, abducted the nationals of 42 nations. This was a crime against humanity. And we expect the world to wake up and understand what needs to be done in order to fight Hamas, in order to put an end to it. And to that end, we welcome any and all international support. And we've had so much of it from India that we're very grateful for, in order to pursue this goal of destroying Hamas and containing the axis of evil that connects Hamas, Hezbollah, and Iran, and their attempts to destabilize the Middle East and sow death, havoc, and ruin across our region.
So, videos of brutality against Israeli women and children by the Hamas terrorist group are going viral on the social media, that have gone viral on social media. Many people were also taken as hostages by the terrorists. How do you see this brutality?
The situation really is horrific, and with every day that passes, the search and rescue teams and the international media are uncovering more stories of atrocities of children who were bound together and then shot and then burned, of whole families that were incinerated alive. The search and rescue teams say that in the villages of Kfar Aza and Be'eri, where they found 280 bodies, 80% of them had been tortured before they were killed. And now Hamas has 200 of our people inside the Gaza Strip. We're talking babies from just a few months old to elderly people in their mid-80s who have no medicine. We don't know whether they're being given any food. We expect that Hamas isn't giving them the minimum humanitarian conditions. And Israel is very clear. We demand the immediate and unconditional return of our hostages. There is no excuse, zero excuse for abducting babies and innocent civilians from their beds and taking them into captivity. Zero excuse. We want them back. We demand their return, and Israel will do whatever is necessary to make sure that our people, our children, our brothers, our sisters, our parents, our grandparents are returned safely and promptly to the embrace of their families inside Israel.
Sir, what's your take on the fact that a section of some media and human rights activists, they have maintained studied silence on this brutality? What's your take on this?
First of all, we've seen not only silence from certain quarters, but outright support and glorification for Hamas. And this is nauseating. It is disgusting. It is revolting. The protests that we've seen on campuses around the world, chanting from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. That's a call for the destruction of the state of Israel. That's a call for the mass murder of our people in the name of a violent nationalist cause that wants to wipe Israel off the map. It has been disgusting to see how many people have been willing to not only tolerate and condone, but glorify Hamas's crimes against humanity, against our innocent civilians and citizens. And in that context, I'm very heartened actually by the support that we've received from India, a country that has experienced a lot of terrorism in its Hamas's crimes against humanity, against our innocent civilians and citizens. And in that context, I'm very heartened actually by the support that we've received from India, a country that has experienced a lot of terrorism in its own time, most famously the Mumbai terror attacks in 2008, when India lost over 160 people in a vicious terror attack. But, that's in a country of over 1 billion people. Israel has lost 1,300 people, 1,400 people, pardon me, and we're a country of less than 10 million people. The magnitude of the atrocity that we have suffered is simply incomprehensible. And personally, I'm very thankful that many people in India understand what Israel has experienced and are expressing that solidarity. And in these very dark times, that gives us comfort.
It is being said that due to political infighting in the country, Hamas found this as a big opportunity and crossed all the limits of cruelty. What's your take on it?
Israeli society now is united as it has never been before in the determined pursuit of one goal: victory over Hamas. It's no secret that for the last year, Israeli society has been bitterly divided over some very divisive political questions. But as soon as Hamas launched its brutal invasion on the morning of October 7th and started massacring our people and committing those crimes against humanity, Israeli society has come together. It's mobilized in body and spirit. And everyone from left and right across society understands that we have no choice but to do everything we can in order to destroy Hamas and its ISIS-like machine of terrorism inside the Gaza Strip. Once that's done, we can continue going back to the arguments inside Israeli society, hopefully, though, with a stronger sense of unity and determination to face our future challenges head on. But for now, as a country, we're focused on one thing: winning this war against Hamas and its brutal regime of terror.
So, Prime Minister of India, Mr. Narendra Modi, has also condemned this terror attack by Hamas. So, how do you take his statement?
As I've mentioned, Israel is very grateful for India's support, particularly from Prime Minister Modi. Prime Minister Modi and Prime Minister Netanyahu have very close relations. They've been in touch very recently, and that support is very much appreciated. Israel, of course, understands that India is one of the most important players on the global stage, certainly within India, and that diplomatic support and that moral clarity as well, making clear there is no excuse for the atrocities that Hamas perpetrated, that Israel has a right to defend itself, is very much appreciated. And it's important that Israel's friends, including India, continue to make their voices heard as the fighting gets harder. And it will, because Israel is only just beginning in its fight to destroy the Hamas machine. As the fighting gets harder, we need Israel's friends to continue speaking loudly and making clear that Israel has a right and a duty to defend itself. by dismantling Hamas once and for all.
Do you think that Israel will have to continue this operation for a long time?
We know that this is not going to be an easy or simple operation, because the goal of destroying Hamas, a terror organization that has tens of thousands of jihadi fighters, that has embedded itself deep inside civilian populated areas, will be a very difficult challenge. It will be a very difficult challenge that is going to pose considerable risk to our troops, our children, our friends, our brothers, who are going to be putting themselves in harm's way in order to destroy Hamas. But, Israel understands it has no choice. We simply do not have the luxury of allowing this ISIS-like terror organization to live on our doorstep, mere meters away from our homes. There simply is no way for Israel to coexist with this evil regime of terror that perpetrated the atrocities of the 7th of October on its doorstep, and we're going to have to defeat it. It won't be easy, it won't be quick, but we have no choice. Hamas forced us into this war, and we're going to win this war, and we will end it on our own terms.
But Hezbollah has said that is like they are planning to attack Israel. Now you can also see the Hezbollah group is also shaking their hand with Hamas group. How do you tackle how the Israel government and the forces are prepared to make make a win and to tackle this battle?
Israel has called up the biggest ever mobilization of reserves. I can tell you many of my personal friends have been called up to do army service so that we are ready to fight on two fronts if we have to, against Hamas and Hezbollah at the same time. We don't want to. We're a democratic, peace-loving country. We don't want war with Hezbollah. We don't want to see what that will do to the state of Lebanon if we are forced to fight against Hezbollah. But if Hezbollah forces us into a full-scale war in the north, we will respond, we will win, we will hold the state of Lebanon accountable with all relevant consequences.
Mr. Levy, my last question. What's your straight message to Hamas group?
Our message to Hamas is that we are coming for you. On the 7th of October, you perpetrated the worst terror attack in world history after 9/11. You've shocked the conscience of the world, and we are coming to destroy you. To every last member of Hamas, every person involved in butchering, burning, brutalizing our people and taking hostages, we are coming to get you. If it takes a year, if it takes 5 years, if it takes 25 years, there will be no rest for the wicked. We will destroy your military machine. We will destroy your governing structure, and Hamas will be no more. You will return our hostages. You will return them immediately. You will return them unconditionally, and we will show you, Hamas, no mercy.
Thank you, sir. It's a very wonderful interview with you, and our heartfelt support and strong stand with you. And we are wishing.
Really, really, really sincerely appreciate it.